When I was a kid, there was a place that existed somewhere right off of the highway between Fort Worth and San Antonio called Aquarina Springs. It was a sort of roadside attraction amusement park built on top of a natural spring lake. I visited a few times with my family as a young kid. I was probably no more than 8 years old, and have these incredibly fuzzy, fantastic memories of how magical this place was. Clear, clean water that you could see straight to the bottom of. Turquoise bubbles and graceful ballet mermaids with glittering bathing suits. A pig that swam, and chickens and rabbits that played tic-tac-toe. Winding paths and a giant shade tree. The swooping, stomach-dropping sky ride. Being so hot in the Texas summer sun, tiny cotton shorts and ponytails, and then my skin cooling as the submarine theater slowly dipped below the water's surface. I remember the feelings much more vividly than what I actually saw, what was physically there. Excitement and anticipation, wonderstruck and curious, thrilled by every new experience. Over the years, I have had conversations with friends that grew up around the same time and place about Aquarina Springs, and have found that many have similar magical and fragmented memories. So, what do you remember about Aquarina Springs?
I remember visiting Aquarina Springs because it was when we went on vacation with my dad, we would always go to San Antonio or Corpus Christi, always down south, always down 35, sometimes stopping in Austin. And there would always be kind of signs as we got closer to New Braunfels. And it just seemed really magical, like a place. And I remember begging if we could go there. And one of the trips we finally did. And it was, I don't know if it was because I was young, but I just remember it being the most magical place ever. So it might have just been, something about I was just at the right age to experience it, because I'd asked other people who'd gone and they remembered it and they didn't remember it as magically as I did. Like, kind of thought it was a little weird or off, but it was pretty awesome for me.
It was my first ever vacation that I took with my grandparents. And I just I remember thinking it was going to be more like Six Flags. And then you get there and it's boats and it's an 80s Waterland extravaganza.
What stands out in your memory? What was your favorite?
So my four favorite things about Aqua Arena Springs. Um, Favorite thing number one was that we would see this mermaid show. You know, the theater would actually sink, and there were these plate glass windows, and the mermaids had these little tubes that would sort of like come down, and they would suck air out of it. They would sort of smoke them like a hookah. And then at one point during the performance, the mermaids would actually eat. And so one of them would like peel a banana and then spin the open banana towards another mermaid.
And then, of course, mermaids. So I remember like it kind of being able to go down and sit in. It was kind of like a weird little theater thing, but just thinking, there's people underwater and they're doing things and they're beautiful. And I think from that point on, also trying to remember what they did underwater, so I could practice that stuff when we were at the pool. So so maybe I could you know do something like that someday.
I loved the underwater acting shows, and I the whole idea of getting in the submarine and having it lower you down so that you can watch them eat bananas underwater was probably one of the coolest things that I had ever seen.
And at some point, a pig would splash down into the scene.
I remember the bird show. I remember a pig. Was there a pig?
Yeah.
And then there was a kind of an old-timey part of it with some animal attractions, which included a duck that would play a piano that was between 3 and 5 keys. There was a chicken that would play tic-tac-toe, and also you could dress up in Old West gear and have a photograph made of you and your brother or whatever. Something as an adult looking back on it that I really appreciate is that you have to understand that the 1950s, 60s in South Texas, there is kind of a very playful vision of what the future and what the family is supposed to be doing or involved in. And so there is an element of Aquarina Springs where it has a kind of strange futurism to it. Like there's kind of a James Bond, they had this kind of modified ski lift, very futuristic.
Nostalgia for the past is a common experience across generations. In this connected age, we can combine the bits and pieces of our memories with the Strangers Home movies, someone else's blog post, and with those of our friends who now live on the other side of the country, creating a mashup of memory that reinvents the original experience.